Welcome to Most Myself. I'm Michelle Madrid, and I am really glad that you're here with me. I've got to start off by saying, what a journey. What an evolution of growth and discovery that has brought me to this moment right here, right now with you. And I'm happy to say that Most Myself is my new podcast offering, one that aims to support you in living as most yourself. It's that simple. And doing it right here in midlife. I'm going to share more about the inspiration and evolution of this podcast inside of this episode. But first, I want to take you back just a little bit as I take a sip of tea. Dandelion tea, to be specific. If you've been following me, you know that back in 2025, I started a podcast called Unboxed, Unburdened, Unstoppable. And I focused on the stories of women who have done the work to dive deep and unbox the parts of themselves they had to pack away in the name of being loved, accepted, strong, or in the name of being everything to everyone. Unboxing those places is how I coach women toward putting down what's burdening them, what's holding them back in life, and finding a way to reconnect to their unstoppable and innate power. Because that power lives within each and every one of us. We need to remember that power, and that truly is the work. What I've found in midlife is that women often face questions from themselves like, who am I now? What do I want? Why do I feel so restless, so tender, or so different? And how do I come back to myself in this season of change? You see, midlife has a way of asking those who, what, why, and how kind of questions. It has a way of stripping away what no longer fits. And underneath it all, there's often this longing, this humming, and it sounds like, I just want to feel like me again. I just want to feel like me again. And maybe you've been experiencing this longing too, and maybe that's what brought you here to this podcast. What's become crystal clear to me as I coach women through my what I call unbox work is this. We don't get stuck because we're broken. We get stuck in our lives because somewhere along the way, we learned how to survive. We learned how to fit in, how to perform, how to carry roles that kept us feeling safe, but also kept us feeling small in our lives. So in this work, we start by uncovering the box. We name the belief or role that's been quietly running the show. And then we notice the patterns, the cycles, the habits, the ways we keep showing up on autopilot because that box has been in charge for so very long. And then we begin to break free. We draw new boundaries. We choose ourselves without needing outside permission. We move into owning our next chapter, stepping into agency, into our voice, into our needs, our opinions, our desires. And finally, we expand into an unboxed life where we pursue the dream. We take that trip. We say yes without guilt. And perhaps we rest without apology. You get the feel, right? And here's what I really want you to know. Here's what I want you to take in. Unboxing isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about remembering. It's about returning to the woman who has been waiting beneath all of those boxes. Like, for example, the box of self-doubt, the box of the inner critic, the box of shame. The parts of you that didn't disappear, they just got quieter, smaller. They got covered up by responsibility and expectation and survival. And when we unbox, we're not creating someone new, not at all. We're finally making space for the truth that has been there all along. And that's why this podcast, Most Myself, exists. for one reason and one reason only, to help you live as most yourself. Not the version of you that makes everybody out there comfortable, not the version that keeps the wheels turning and the earth spinning, not the version that holds everything together while you quietly disappear, but the version of you that is alive. Yes, that version. The version that is alive, the version that is honest, the version of you that is whole. The woman who knows what she needs and no longer apologizes for needing it. And that's why Unboxed, Unburdened, Unstoppable evolved into Most Myself, because this truly is the North Star. Unboxing was always the doorway. Becoming most myself is 100% the destination. So if we're just meeting, I want to tell you just a little bit about me. Again, I'm Michelle Madrid. I am a midlife women's wellness coach. I'm an author and a guide who is grief-informed and trained in self-leadership. But more than anything, I am someone who deeply believes that midlife grief is real. It's real. Like the grief of identity loss, that who am I now feeling so many of us face in midlife, or the grief of a quiet home as the nest empties out and we find ourselves struggling with how to fill the silence in our hallways, or the grief of fleeting time that can so often sound like, is it too late for me? Is it too late? I believe that these very, very unique kinds of grief are actually invitations. Invitations to come back to the most precious parts of ourselves that we've maybe been avoiding, ignoring, or even running from. Because somewhere along the way, we started thinking, maybe it's too late. Maybe I missed my chance. Or who do I think I am to want that now? That dream, that desire at this stage of life. So I want you to hear me on this. It is not too late. You are not too late. In fact, you are right on time. I promise you that. So here's another thing about me. I believe in the power of emotional intelligence, in the courage it takes to look within us and ask, why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I think the way I think? Why do I believe what I believe? Why do I do what I do? I believe in gently peeling back the layers that have kept us from truly knowing ourselves. And at the very heart of everything I do is this. I help women come back to a place where they can honestly say, I am living as most myself. I am living as most myself, finally. I'm not just surviving. I'm not performing. I'm not disappearing, but I am living. I am living as most myself. You know, for a long time, a really long time, I used to say, I just want to feel more myself again. I'd like to feel more myself. And maybe you've said that too. More alive, more grounded, more connected, more like me. And on the surface, that sounds really beautiful. It does. But if I'm honest, and I am always going to be honest with you, something about that phrase never quite fit for me, especially in midlife, because more myself still felt like striving. Like, even if I got there, there would still be more to fix, more to improve, more to prove. Like I wasn't quite enough yet. Like I was always one step away from finally being okay with who I was, comfortable in my own skin. And then one day, I came across an Instagram post from the actress Pamela Anderson. Now, Pamela Anderson is now a midlife woman with 2 grown sons. She is a woman who was once the most famous actress and sex symbol in the world for her role on the TV series Baywatch. Remember her? And at the very end of her IG post, she wrote something like, I feel the most myself. Most myself. And those two words stood out to me. And I remember stopping. I really stopped in my tracks because that was it. And I knew it. That was it. Not more myself, but most myself. And I got what Pamela was saying. She didn't want to be a slightly improved version of herself, not in this season of life, not here in midlife, no. She'd grown tired of spending her life upgrading and editing and managing who she is. She wants to be fully herself in this chapter of life. And I agree wholeheartedly. I want to be fully myself too. And that's what Pamela Anderson was naming: fully integrated, fully honest, fully aligned, fully unapologetic, whole and free. And here's the difference as I see it. More myself says, I'm not quite there yet. Not quite. No matter how much work I do, there's always another mountain to climb, another way to be better. But most myself says, I'm here. I've arrived. I'm home. It carries this quiet, grounded confidence, an unapologetic quality. It says, I don't apologize for my feelings. Not anymore. I don't ask permission to be who I am. No, not anymore. I don't outsource my worth. I'm living in alignment with my truth, with my desires, my voice, my values. I'm still growing, of course, but I've arrived at a place of sweet self-acceptance. And real quick, back to Pamela for just a moment. I got to share with you that I used to watch her on Baywatch, and I was younger, and I remember when I'd be watching the show and I'd see Pamela, I could feel myself just feeling bad about myself. I'd compare myself. I was totally trapped in the box of comparison at the time. And when I'd find myself comparing, I'd always feel less than. And Pamela felt at that time untouchable, unreal. At least that's how I saw it. But watching her now as a woman in midlife, she shares a deeply personal evolution towards self-acceptance and freedom and rebellious beauty standards. Often she's without makeup, even at movie openings or couture fashion events. And you know what? That is really super interesting to me. Pamela exemplifies the idea that it is absolutely okay to be ourselves as women in midlife, barefaced and all. She talks about lifing versus aging, and I really like that, focusing on life and not age, and a level of self-acceptance that has truly redefined her and also has redefined her career. It's all powerfully relatable, powerfully grounded. It's like I see her, and I get her. I want to be around her. I feel connected to her. And it hit me. That woman I see today, that woman was always in her. She was just buried, boxed up, under expectations, under image, under survival. And she was being who she needed to be loved, to be successful, and to belong. We can all relate to that. But the question is, did she truly belong to herself? And I recognized myself in that question because I come from a background in television news. And let me tell you, there can be a whole lot of being someone you are not in that industry. I can remember anchoring morning news, for example, and waking up before dawn. I'd get up, I'd stand in the shower, and I would cry for minutes on end. I would cry because I was exhausted. I felt overwhelmed. But crying was the only safe place for me to let that out. because no one else could know that. I had to be polished on air. I had to look polished on air. I had to look put together on air because there were 100 other women who would kill for that job. You can be replaced in a heartbeat. And that does something to you. So you learn to hide. You learn to perform. And sometimes you have to swallow your humanity. And that's draining. Now, eventually I walked away from television. I did. It wasn't easy. So much of my identity was wrapped up in that job. Yet, as time went by, I began to appreciate not being on camera anymore. I did. I started appreciating it. But then came the much deeper work. Questions like, who am I now if I'm not that? Who am I now? If I'm not that, then who am I now? Because the patterns of thought and behavior didn't just disappear. I still wanted to get it right. I still wanted to be loved, be needed, be acceptable. As a wife, as a mom, as a woman, as a creative, working to remember my true purpose in this life. And when I began building my coaching business, I remember the first time I recorded an Instagram reel with no makeup on. Thank you, Pamela Anderson, for the example and inspiration. I remember that moment very well. You know, there was no special lighting. I wasn't in a television studio. I remember in that moment experiencing sort of a relaxing of the anchor voice that I'd been trained to speak with, sort of melted away. And there was just me, no makeup, in big glasses. And honestly, it felt terrifying. It did. It felt terrifying because I had spent so many years being on and looking the part and sounding the part. But that wasn't really real. That was a role. And there's no judgment when I say that, no judgment at all. It just was. So on that day during that recording, I think what I was really saying was, here I am. Here I am. Judge me, if you will, for who I am, not who I'm pretending to be. And that's when I realized living as most myself is being real. It's being vulnerable, honest, unmasked. No performance, no polish, no hiding. It's saying, truly, it's saying, I'm coming home to myself. And I'm making this choice for myself. I belong to myself. Finally, I belong to myself. And the no makeup part was an outward declaration of an inner transformation. Truly it was. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. I meant it. Finally, I'm home. Take me as I am, world, because I'm going to love me as I am, no matter what. And that feels really, really, really good. It feels so good. And my path to becoming most myself didn't start with confidence. It didn't. It didn't even start with clarity. It started with ache. That's right, ache. It started with grief. Like losing both of my adoptive parents in 2016, 1 month apart. Or sending my 2 sons off to college and feeling an odd, strange mix of pain and pride all at once. With loneliness, like not knowing who to share my innermost feelings with as I navigated the waters of empty nesting, the choppy waters. With fear, like maybe I spent all those years preparing my kids to step boldly into their next chapter, but I failed to prepare myself. That was a really scary realization. And the ache was this constant feeling that something inside me was just unsettled. Like parts of me were knocking from the inside, asking to be noticed. Notice me. Parts of myself I had boxed away in order to survive. And then midlife came along and it started rattling those boxes big time. It looked like waking up to the realization that a spouse, after years together, could want to leave. It looked like waking up with doom-filled thoughts that did not inspire me to get out of bed. Crying alone in the car. Feeling invisible in rooms where I used to feel confident. It looked like this low-grade hum of something is off. Something isn't working anymore. Like an irritant you keep ignoring. And you tell yourself, oh, it's fine. I'm fine. Because that's what we've been taught to tell ourselves. Anything less than fine is weak, right? Until one day, you're not fine. And you can no longer ignore it. And something in you says, enough. Something in you says, enough. I don't want to feel this way ever again, not this disconnected, not this small, not this exhausted from pretending. Because it steals your joy. It steals your presence. It steals your quality of life. And at some point you realize, I don't want to keep abandoning myself to keep the peace. I don't want to keep doing that. And I thought about all the times I had swallowed my words, softened my truth, silenced my needs, clipped my own wings. All the times I didn't say what I really, really felt. And every time it left me feeling worse about myself, not better. I felt worse about myself. I felt small, unseen, unvalued. And I quite simply didn't want that for myself anymore. I wanted to feel seen. I wanted to feel valued, understood. I wanted to feel honest. So I began to realize there were entire parts of me I had packed up and hidden away over the years. Like my needs. What do I need in this moment? My voice. What do I want to say at this time? Or my anger. Why can't I express this emotion out loud? My desires. What are the dreams that I've put on pause? And my grief. Why haven't I allowed myself to feel the loss? Oh yes, especially grief. I had so much unresolved grief swirling inside of me. Grief over losses people could see and losses no one talked about. Like growing up as an adoptee, struggling with my place in the world and hiding the hurt that was living inside of me. And in midlife, add on the loss of roles, the loss of identities, the loss of versions of myself I would never, ever be again. Grief was the first box I had to open up. Because what I found is that when you're consumed by grief, you don't see possibility. You don't see purpose. You don't see your future self. You just see survival. You just are trying to get through the day. And that's when I learned something life-changing. I needed something to help me not get swallowed up by the ache of unresolved grief. I needed a tool to help me recognize the ache, to name what I needed in that moment, and choose a small, kind, doable action that could help me move forward in that moment. I needed a way to take that first step toward reconnecting with myself and listening to myself. You know, I've been at personal development conferences, so many of them, where I've stood in a big crowd and I've been encouraged to make a big move or take that massive step, but I still felt stuck and overwhelmed. My nervous system would just completely shut down, and feeling stuck made me feel worse about myself. I'd so often leave those conferences feeling completely dejected. And then I realized that we don't start with action. That's like putting the cart before the horse. Because how do you know what action to take when you haven't clearly identified what you need? That's why we start with ache. That's why. Because the ache that we often avoid is actually the messenger here to guide us forward. It holds a whole lot of information because beneath every ache, there is a need. Beneath every ache, there is a need. So let me slow this down for just a moment because this part really, really matters and I want you to hear me. When I talk about ache, I'm not just talking about feelings because feelings come and go. You can feel sad, anxious, irritated, overwhelmed, lonely, numb. Those are emotions. They are valid and they're important, but they're usually the surface layer. An ache is what lives underneath the emotion. An ache is the deeper, ongoing signal or messenger that says, something in me needs attention. It's not just, for example, I'm tired today. It's I'm tired of living in a way that doesn't fit me anymore. It's not just I'm anxious. It's I don't feel safe being fully myself. It's not just I'm overwhelmed. It's I'm carrying too much alone. Do you see the difference? An ache is what shows up when your life no longer matches your truth. Write that down. I'm going to say it again. An ache is what shows up when your life no longer matches your truth. It's your inner wisdom saying, hey, something here matters. It matters. And most of us were never taught how to listen to that. We were taught to push through, stay busy, be strong, be grateful, keep on going. So instead of listening, we numb, we scroll, we overwork, we overgive, we distract. We tell ourselves, I'm fine, until we're not. And that's why my work always starts here. Not with fixing, not with planning, not with goals, but with listening to the ache. Listening to the ache. Here's the very simple truth. Every ache is pointing to a need. Every single one. And I have learned to communicate with my ache. I've learned to befriend the ache, to get curious. So I developed my Ache to Action method. It has 3 simple yet profound steps. Step 1, feel the ache. Step 2, name the need. And step 3, take one small, doable action. Because the nervous system, in a moment of ache where we have identified a need, it can handle one small, kind, doable step forward. Our nervous system doesn't feel overwhelmed at the moment. And that's how we begin to realign and recenter. So let me break that down with an example, okay? There's a mother, an empty nester. She wakes up on most days lately feeling sad, really sad. And that sadness plants thoughts of dread in her head. The quiet in her house is deafening. She asks, why am I so tired when there are no kids in the house who need me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I get myself together? She's been running from this ache, not wanting to look at it, but on this day she reaches for my Ache to Action method. Step 1, feel the ache. This means you stop running from what you feel. You pause long enough to ask, what is actually hurting right now? What actually is hurting right now? What feels heavy? What feels empty? What feels off? Not judging it, not fixing it, just noticing it. I like to say, notice what you notice. Just notice it. I feel lonely. I feel disconnected. I feel resentful. I feel invisible. I feel tired in my bones. That's the ache speaking. And this mom in our example, she identifies that her ache is not feeling useful anymore. Step 2, name the need. So then we ask, what is this ache asking for? Because behind, for example, I'm exhausted might be, I need rest, I need help, I need space, I need honesty, I need support, I need to be seen. Behind, I'm angry might be, I need boundaries, I need respect, I need to stop betraying myself. Behind, I feel lost might be, I need direction, I need permission, I need to choose myself again. And this is where clarity begins. This is where clarity is seated. And our mom in our example, she identifies her need under the ache of no longer feeling useful as the need to feel valued, purposeful, and connected to who she is beyond motherhood. Step 3, take one small doable action. Not a life overhaul, not a 5-year plan, one small doable step. Something you can actually do. Like saying, no, not right now, once. Blocking time on your calendar for you. Asking for help. Resting without guilt. Our mother in the example names her doable action as spending 15 minutes a day doing something that reminds her that she matters, like journaling, walking, learning, or creating. Tiny actions, big shifts. That's ache to action. It's a bridge, an effective tool, a first step from pain to clarity to movement. And the mom in our example, the sadness has eased and the thoughts of dread have turned to thoughts of hope and possibility through the ache to action method and showing up for herself in this way. Now, I want to be crystal clear about something. My ache to action method is a tool, and it is a powerful one. It's a first step to begin listening to yourself again. It's something you can use in your everyday life. It helps you to stop ignoring yourself and to start listening to yourself. But it's not the whole solution, because here's the truth. Most of us don't struggle because we don't know what we feel. We struggle because we've been trained to ignore it, to avoid it, to minimize it, to override it, to doubt it, to talk ourselves out of it. We learned early, really early on, don't be too much, don't make waves, don't need so much, and certainly don't disappoint. So when an ache shows up, our automatic response is to avoid it. We second guess it. We tell ourselves, it's not that bad. Other people have it worse, right? I should be grateful. I'm being dramatic. And that's where women disconnect from their truth. That's the point where they disconnect from their own truth. Not because they're weak, not because their nervous systems learned that feeling their raw, real truth and feeling that truth deeply and completely wasn't safe. So we pack those truths away, box by box, deep within ourselves. We tell ourselves that those truths are best packed away in boxes that should remain sealed up tight and labeled do not open. Do not open. But here's something I know for sure. Truth will not sit silenced forever. At some point, and often in midlife, the truth begins to rattle inside of those boxes, begins to rattle loud. And we feel a knocking from the inside of ourselves asking, why won't you look at me? Why won't you open up these places inside of yourself? Why? And that's where my one-on-one coaching comes in. Because I believe that the why of anything is everything. It's so important, this thing called why. So my ache to action method, that important first step of listening to yourself, asks, what do you feel? What do you need? And what small action can you take to help move yourself forward? It's how we begin to communicate with ourselves. But in my private coaching, we go deeper. It's a deeper dive. We explore the boxes you've been living in. And we ask questions like, why do you avoid this feeling? Where did you learn that? What story are you telling yourself about it? Who taught you to disappear? What are you afraid will happen if you choose yourself? We go deep, and we do it gently, safely, and oh yes, with a whole lot of compassion. So let's go back. Let's go back to our empty nester mom. Remember her who we met earlier as we moved through the ache to action steps. She identified her ache as not feeling useful anymore. Her need beneath that ache was the need to feel valued, purposeful, and connected to who she is beyond motherhood. Her one small doable step was spending 15 minutes a day doing something that reminds her that she matters. So she decided to go deeper. And so she signed up for my one-on-one coaching. We explored what box might be keeping her feeling stuck. And it wasn't random. It was built. It was reinforced. It was even rewarded. It was the box of earned worth. The box of earned worth. The core belief found within that box was this: I matter because I'm needed. And when she opened this box and began to look inside of it, she discovered beliefs like love is conditional, rest feels indulgent, being needed equals being safe. And this box and the beliefs inside weren't her truth. They were her inheritance. And what was unearthed was that she grew up in a family system that needed her to grow up early. She became the emotional support in that family, the peacekeeper, the translator, the stabilizer, the little adult. And this is called parentification. In those homes, being needed equals being safe. And so this woman didn't just mother in her adult life. She organized her identity around being essential. And now that her kids are grown and out of the nest, that daily dependence is gone. And her nervous system was reading it as, I am no longer necessary, useful, therefore I am less valuable. Now, she didn't choose this belief. She learned it. She inherited it. And what is learned can be unlearned. That voice helped her survive, but it doesn't get to run her life anymore. And that's the power of unboxing within a one-on-one coaching setting with me. You're not just managing symptoms. You're changing patterns. You're unlearning survival, and you're learning self-trust. That is the deep, beautiful, transformative work. So if you're listening right now and thinking, I feel something stirring. I know I'm avoiding something. I'm tired of doing this alone. I am ready to understand myself. That is your ache talking. And you do not have to figure it out by yourself. That's the really good news. I'm here and we can walk this together. Where you're not performing, where you're not explaining and not proving, where you're being honest and you're learning yourself and you're coming home. Ache to Action helps you start listening to yourself One-on-one coaching helps you change the patterns, stay connected to yourself, stay with yourself, and start living as a woman who can say, I am living as most myself. So this podcast is about listening before fixing, truth before performance, compassion before pressure. It's about unboxing the parts of you that got buried under being strong. It's about learning to trust yourself again, learning how to trust yourself again. It's about becoming most yourself in real life, in real relationships, in real choices, not in theory, in the everyday moments that actually shape a life. And if you're listening right now and you're thinking, I've lost parts of myself. I don't know who I am anymore. I feel lonely. I feel restless. I feel stuck. I want you to hear me. You are not broken. You are becoming. You're becoming. And again, you don't have to do it alone. That is why I'm here. And it's an honor to be here for you. That is exactly why I'm building this space. That's why this podcast exists, because none of us were meant to navigate this season in isolation. We weren't. And it is truly an honor to share this first episode of Most Myself with you. Now, in the episodes ahead, we're going to talk about the real stuff. We're always going to be real. We'll talk about midlife grief, talk about loneliness, identity shifts, boundaries, menopause, empty nesting, desire, starting over, coming home, all of it. Because midlife is layered. It's tender and it's powerful. It's unsettling and sacred. It's hard and hopeful, often all at once. And I want this space to honor every layer of that together, always together. So let me leave you with this. You are allowed to live as most yourself. I'm going to say that again. You are allowed to live as most yourself. And you're allowed to do that right here in midlife. Not someday, not when things calm down, not after everyone else is taken care of. Right here, right now, in the present moment. Because look at the wisdom that you carry. Look at what you've survived in your life, what you've learned, what you've healed, what you're still brave enough to face. You see, this season isn't proof that you're behind. It's proof that you're ready. It's proof that you're ready to honor where you've been, ready to trust what you know, ready to choose yourself again. This is your season of remembering, of self-return, of coming home. And I am so honored to walk beside you. Welcome to Most Myself.